Hello everybody, Calamity here, and because we're in that pre-update weekend, there isn't much going on in Genshin, so I thought we'd make a video going over every single artifact set in the game. I'm just going to talk about them, whether they're good or not. And yeah, there's a lot of artifact sets to go over, so let's go ahead and just get started. Use the timestamps down below in the comment or the description if you just want to skip to a specific set. So we're going to start with the very first set that most likely everyone got their first 5-star version of, and that's going to be either Gladiator's Finale or Wanderer's Troupe, because these sets are available from every single boss in the game, as well as the weekly bosses. So, first of all, what do? Gladiator's Finale gives you an 18% attack boost on the 2-piece effect, and then for the 4-piece effect, you get a 35% normal attack damage increase for claymores, pole arms, and swords. Now, obviously, the unfortunate part about this is that it's only normal attack damage, because obviously not every DPS character in the game has normal attack damage. So, like Hu Tao, for example, is charge damage. And if you go over to the Wanderer's Troop set, you get Elemental Mastery, which is always going to be a useful damage stat for every character. The 4-piece effect is going to make it so that your charged attack damage does 35% more damage if you're using a bow or a catalyst. Again, not going to apply to everybody. However, this is a good, just starting out set. I would just slap this on any DPS character at first. Even just a 2-piece Wanderers or a 2-piece Gladiator set, if you're just starting out and you're just barely getting your first few 5-star artifact pieces, this is, it's better than nothing, basically. And you can eventually upgrade them as you unlock more domains and more artifact sets. So yeah, these aren't really that good. They're just stepping stone artifact sets. Now moving on to the artifact sets, we're gonna start from the bottom and then go all the way up to the latest one. So these are the ones that you have early access to, so that kind of factors in how useful they can be for newer players. But let's go ahead and start with the Midsummer Courtyard, which houses the Thundersoother and the Thundering Fury. So let's start with the worst one first. So the Thundersoother isn't really a good set because you don't really do mono electro teams. There's not really a good reason to, and especially with the new update coming out on Tuesday, we're gonna get a brand new electro charged character. And you're not gonna want to do that. You're gonna want to stick to doing electro charged damage, and that's why this domain isn't really good to farm in general. However, the Thundering Fury is here. This is good for, when you're just starting out, maybe you got an early Kaching, maybe you got Official. Characters like that are really good early on to slap on the Thundering Fury. And for those that don't know, this did get a significant change. I kind of wish Hoyoverse would go back and change some of the older artifact sets. I don't know why they don't do this. But yeah, they made it so that it also affects Hyper Bloom and Aggravate as well. And I don't know if people remember this, but this also has the elemental skill cooldown reduction by 1 second that can occur every 0.8 when you do a quickened elemental reaction. So that's actually pretty nice. I would say this is a solid set for characters like Kaching, Chlorinde, of course, as well. I think the elemental skill cooldown decrease can be very helpful, especially if you are using her in a aggravate team. That can help get her skill back, because obviously, Chlorinde without her skill isn't really doing much. So I think it's a solid set. Probably better off using the strongbox method though. And for those that don't know what that is, that's when you go to the alchemy station and you click the tab with the little box, and you can turn in your trash or your unwanted artifacts, and you can choose a specific set of what you want to get instead. And the artifacts you get are going to be completely random, of course. So yeah, you can just turn in like your gladiators and your Wanderer's Troop and try to get, specifically just the Thundering Fury if you wanted to. Moving on to the Valley of Remembrance. This one is actually very solid domain because of the Veridescent Veneer. Unfortunately, a lot of people will tell you not to farm it because it also has the Maiden's Beloved. Now, for newer players, I would actually say this isn't bad. If you're just starting out, getting the extra healing isn't a bad thing, because new players are more prone to make mistakes because you're learning how to fight the enemies, you're learning their attacks, and when you're learning, you're gonna get hit, or maybe you're taking all this damage and stuff, and your characters aren't built. So it's normal for you to take a lot of damage, and you know it can be tedious to have to constantly cook food to heal yourself. So having a nice Maiden's Beloved 4-piece effect on your healer is going to really amp up that healing and just make it so that, hey, you can keep making those mistakes because you can just heal them right back up. And Barbara, I believe, everyone gets for free still when you start out, so this is honestly a really good set for her. Just give her some nice healing, and you can obviously upgrade it later, and she's easy to build, right? You just get her some HP for the healing scaling and then some energy recharge and you're good to go. And it's really nice to have. Next up is the Veridescent Veneer set, and this is still considered the best artifact set for multiple Animo support characters: Sucrose, Kazuha, Lanyan, Haizo, Sayu, like, list goes on and on and on. Basically, if you're an Animo support, this is your set most of the time. And the reason for that is because of the Elemental Resistance Shred. That is a huge damage increase, basically removing 40% of your opponent's defense, and you can actually make them go into the negatives, depending on how much resistance the enemy has. The increase to swirl damage is actually negligible because it's more of just the effect of reducing their elemental resistances, which makes your main DPS do more damage. So this is a very strong set and continues to be one of the strongest sets in the game. Next up, we have Peak of Vindagnir. I don't know if I said that right. This houses the Blizzard Strayer and the Heart of Depth set. So for the Blizzard Strayer set, this basically gives you a bunch of crit rate, especially if the opponent is frozen, which nowadays this is a really good team because of Escoffier really bringing frozen back into the meta. So characters like Ayaka can really take advantage of this. Even Skirk, if you don't get the newer set for her, also really solid. It gives you a ton of crit rate, not to mention you also get even more crit rate just by having 2 cryo characters on the team. So your crit rate, like, is mostly given to you for free, and you can just go really hard on focusing for crit damage. So this is still a solid set for cryo DPS characters. Next up is the Heart of Depth, and this is for hydro damage characters. So yeah, you can give this to your Tartaglias, your Ayatos. I would not give this to Neuvillette because there are better options for him, unfortunately. But yeah, this is... So the Heart of Depth set gives a hydro damage bonus of 15% on the 2-piece effect. And the 4-piece effect makes it so that whenever you use your skill, you gain an increase to normal and charge attack damage to 30% for 15 seconds. This is more of like, you have earlier access to it. This is in the mountains near Mondstadt, so it's better. Or it's easier to access for newer players. And it's okay, right? Like, this is still pretty good for Ayato, but I believe Tartaglia has a better set now. But this one's alright. So for Hydro DPS characters, this is your go-to, at least early on. Next up is Ridgewatch, and this houses the Tenacity of the Millilith set, and this is still a good support set because it gives you... the 2-piece gives you a bunch of HP percentage, 20%, and the 4-piece effect gives you an attack buff to your entire party, a 20% attack buff, which is nice, and it increases your shield strength by 30%. So this is usually slapped onto like shielding characters. Zhongli, Layla, Hirara, for example, can take advantage of this, and it gives just a nice buff because shielders nowadays, especially when they introduce, like, you know, 4-star shielders, that's kind of it. They just give you a shield, maybe a buff or 2, and that's it. This gives them even stronger shields and yet another attack percentage buff. It's a good set to slap on, and the 2-piece effect is also really good for a lot of HP scaling characters. A lot of people can do the like 2-piece HP percentage from this set, and then the 2-piece effect from Vorukasha's Glow to give yourself a 40% HP percentage boost. Characters like Nilo can take advantage of this very easily. So yeah, it's a very solid set. You just need a character that can attack opponents with their skill while off the field to constantly trigger the effect, because it doesn't last that long. Only lasts 3 seconds, so you need the skill to be hitting opponents while they're off the field. Next up is the Pale Flame set, and this is still, unfortunately, your go-to if you're doing any sort of physical damage. You know, Eula, Remine, Razor, this is your set, and unfortunately, Hoyoverse has not given us anything new for physical damage dealers. Again, this is instead of making like a new set that's just better than the Pale Flame, I'd rather them just come back to Pale Flame, and even just like upping the numbers would be nice. Like if that damage, the physical damage increase was 20, 30%, 40, 50%, and then you up the numbers on the 4-piece effect. This would be great. This would be a great boost to physical damage because they need help. They haven't gotten any sort of help from Hoyoverse in a very long time. So yeah, Pale Flame is the go-to for physical damage dealers. Next up is the domain of Guyun. Sorry. This is honestly probably one of the worst artifact domains in the game. Because both sets are really not useful. So let's talk about them first. First one is the Archaic Petra. 2-piece gives you 15% geo damage bonus. And 4-piece, this is like supposed to be the geo equivalent of a Veridescent Veneer, but it's not as good. So for the 4-piece effect, whenever you do Crystallize reaction, the element that you crystallize with, you'll gain a 35% damage bonus for that particular element for excuse me, for 10 seconds. And you can only get one elemental boost from this effect. You can't like crystallize hydro and cryo and then get the damage for both. You only get damage for one. This is not that good because this isn't that good because if you look at the way Geo characters are, like the teams that revolve around most Geo characters, you're going to focus on getting mainly Geo characters. So like for example, an Arataki Ito team, it's mainly Geo characters. A Noelle damage team is mainly Geo characters. And you want to buff Geo damage. Unfortunately, you can't do that with the 4-piece effect because it's only going to boost the element that you're crystallizing with, which is not the Geo portion, but the either Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro portion that's getting you the damage bonus. And this isn't helpful for your Geo teams. So you would think, okay, then I'll put it on a support Geo character like Noelle, and then my other character will get a 35% damage boost. And that's, again, okay, but there's better options out there for sure. This was only used for the 2-piece effect for characters like Ningguang early on. You would do like 2-piece Archaic Petra and like 2-piece Gladiator's Finale, for example. Just to give her some straight up damage, but she has a better set these days, and this set honestly kind of been forgotten. Again, this is another example of I wish Hoyoverse would come back and change it up or buff it or something because it's just not that good. And even characters like Navia, right, who are gonna have different elements on the team to do crystallize reaction, the problem is you're not boosting Geo again, you're boosting other damage, and that's not really helpful for Navia. So next up is the Retracing Bolide. This makes your shield strength stronger by 35%, and while you're protected by a shield, you gain an additional 40% damage boost to normal and charge attack damage. This sounds good on paper until you realize this is only for the equipping character of this artifact set, which is not good. This is really not good at all, actually. The only character that comes to mind is Noelle, because she's also a DPS character at C6. But this isn't like, oh, I'm gonna put a Layla on the team with this set, give my team a shield, and then swap off. No, you'll lose the 40% damage bonus. And of course, the other thing that sucks about this is it's only normal and charge attack. As we all know, not everyone does their damage from just normal or charge attacks. There's some people that do skills, some people do burst, so this isn't really, it's niche. It's very, very niche, first of all. And it's just not that good. And even back then, this wasn't that good because there wasn't a lot of shielders in the game. Yes, we had Noelle, but, it was like Noelle, Diona, Zhongli, and maybe Xinyan, but there were better options. So, unfortunately, this whole domain is a huge skip, in my opinion. Hidden Palace of Zhou Formula. This one, if you haven't done this domain, by the way, this used to be one of the worst domains to run because you had to fight like 3 waves of enemies, and it was really, really annoying if you didn't bring the right elements to deal with the mage shields. These days, it's not as bad. It's only 2 waves of enemies, and it's very easy and quick. But I would still recommend using the Strongbox method because Lavawalkers is very similar to the Thundersoother set that we talked about, where this isn't really good. Lavawalkers is only good for mono pyro teams, and mono pyro isn't that good because Vaporize is such a good reaction, and so is Melt. And both of them just got, well, Melt got a really big buff thanks to Silali being introduced in the Natline update. So the only character that comes to mind is Klee for the Lavawalkers because she does so much pyro application with her attacks. But even then, this set is very, very outdated. Just getting rid of the pyro res effect would be and if this was more pyro damage would be nice. And if this was a higher number than 35%, this is so low. It's not that good anymore. However, the Crimson Witch of Flames, this is a very good set for a lot of pyro characters. You can give this to Hu Tao, Diluc, Gaming, Yanfei, like the list goes on and on. Most pyro characters do want a Crimson Witch of Flames. It's a very solid artifact set. Doesn't matter if you're doing Vaporize, Melt, even Burgeon is on here, Overloaded, Burning teams, like it's all really, really good. As long as you're also using your elemental skill, which most characters do, you'll increase the 2-piece effect bonus by 50%, so you get a 20 what is that, 22.5% increase in damage or something like that. I can't really math. And it stacks 3 times, so you can get a bunch of pyro damage for free, and it's very, very good. Yeah, Crimson Witch, very good. Would still do Strongbox method because Lavawalkers is a waste. Next up is the Clear Pool of Mountain Cavern. This one houses the Bloodstained Chivalry set and the Noblesse Oblige. Let's talk about this one first. This used to be your go-to for physical damage dealers until Pale Flame was introduced. But this effect, the 4-piece effect of this one is really, really bad. You read here, it's after defeating an opponent, you increase your charge attack damage by 50% and reduce its stamina cost to 0 for 10 seconds. Hoyoverse really, really needs to come back and change this 4-piece effect. It is awful, 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 awful. Because first of all, this is gonna do nothing against bosses, right? Hardly any bosses in this game have adds, so you won't be defeating opponents to increase your charge attack damage. And that's the other part that sucks. Just charge attack damage and not a physical to attack damage, or not even charged, normal, plunging, etc, etc. It's just charged, and most physical damage dealers are not spamming their charge attacks. So this is, like, obviously this is just because it's old design, but, you know, I wish Hoyoverse, again, come back here, change up this 4-piece effect, because I know there's some, like, niche Zhongli physical DPS shenanigans maybe that this is good for, but no. Like, this is just a really, really bad set in general. The only reason you would get a Bloodstained Chivalry is if you just want to do 2-piece this and 2-piece Pale Flame. That's it. Next up is Noblesse Oblige. Now, this set is still considered one of the best support artifact sets in the game. And the funny thing is, it's not even crazy good. It's just a nice buff. The 2-piece effect makes it so that your elemental burst does 20% more damage, which, funny enough, is not really that good for support characters. Like, a lot of people put this on Bennett, right? But you're not like, oh my god, that 20% damage boost to Bennett's burst, wowee. You're just doing it because when you use your burst, which should be all the time, you get a 20% attack boost, and that's what's nice. And it says right here, the effect cannot stack, so you're only farming this, you know, depending on your teams, you only need this for one support character on each team. So you don't need to farm multiple Noblesse Oblige sets. Next up is the Lost Valley, and this one's also pretty much a skip in my opinion, just like the domain of Guyan. And let's talk about why. So first of all, we have the Vermillion Hereafter. This is the only decent set in this artifact domain, and honestly, this is only good for characters like Zhao. That's the only one that comes to mind. Maybe a Yato or something, but there's other better options without having to rely on this. Yeah, this is okay, but the only character that wants this is Zhao, and I would still just do strongbox method of obtaining these if you want to go this way for your Zhao. Next up is Echoes of an Offering, and this artifact set is awful. Now let's talk about why. First of all, it only procs when you do normal attacks, so again, that makes it very niche. It's not going to be for everyone. And the second part is you can read right here, 36% chance to trigger what's called the Valley Right effect, which will increase your normal attack damage by 70% of your attack. Now, RNG is bad. We don't want an artifact piece that says, hey, sometimes you'll do a big chunk of damage. We don't want that. We want, hey, here's your 4-piece effect. It's straight up more damage. Or, you know, more utility or more whatever the character you're building. More value to them. This is not good. And the Valley Right is only going to affect one normal attack, and then you have to RNG it again. It does like have this pity system where you increase the odds of triggering it if you fail by 20%, but no. Just no. This is bad. This is awful. There's just way better options out there that are way more consistent. This is an awful artifact set, and yet another example of Hoyoverse. I wish you would come back and rethink it, remake it, change it up. It's bad. Next up is the Momiji Dyed Court in Inazuma. Now this is honestly probably one of the best domains in the game, and probably still is after many years. I think that says a lot about Hoyoverse's artifact, like the way they design new artifacts, if the older ones are still considered the best. So this one has the Shimenawa's Reminiscence, which gives an attack boost, by 18%. And then when you cast your skill, the character will lose energy, 15 energy if they have 15 or more. And they will gain an increase of 50% to normal charge or plunging attack damage for 10 seconds. This effect will not trigger again during that duration. This is one of the few artifacts that actually has a downside, because you lose energy instead of gain it. In exchange, you get a very big damage boost. There are a few characters that can take advantage of this because they don't care if they lose energy, or they just don't use energy at all. For example, Malvika doesn't have energy. She has what's called Fighting Spirit. Skirk also doesn't have energy as well. Characters like Yoimiya don't care if they don't get their burst because their burst sucks. Hu Tao is another character that can also like benefit from not getting her burst, and doesn't really matter if she doesn't get her burst or not, just because she's the character that heals with her burst and she wants to actually stay at a low HP at all times. So the Shimenawa's helps delay her burst from coming back sooner. So this is why this is a good set. However, you know, just getting the 2-piece of this and like Gladiator's Finale is a good head start to your DPS character of choice, because you'll just get straight up more attack. You can also pair it with the Emblem of Severed Fate, which also on the 2-piece effect gives energy recharge. Speaking of Emblem of Severed Fate, you know, this is probably one of the best artifact sets in the entire game, and still is. This artifact set came out, I believe, like 4 years ago now. 3 or 4 years ago. I lose track of time. And it's still good. It is still amazing on so many characters. Zhongling, Jingcho, Yelan, basically a lot of your supports. You know, Dia could also use this as well. It gives you a bunch of energy recharge, which is a very important stat to many DPS and sub-DPS characters. And it increases the elemental burst damage by 25% of your energy recharge. You can get a maximum of 75% bonus damage of your energy recharge obtained in this way. That's a huge damage increase, and this helps alleviate the downside of investing into a lot of energy recharge, because, you know, being able to burst off cooldown with your DPS or your sub DPSs is really good, right? But the problem is you also need to invest in crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, elements of mastery, and you're like, oh, I'm losing so much damage, but I need my energy recharge. This helps alleviate it with your heavy investment into energy recharge being converted into damage. So this is a just really, really great set. Good for so many characters. You're going to be stuck in this domain like I was, especially if you're new, for many, many months. So if I was starting out on like a brand new account, I would zoom on over to Inazuma as fast as I can to unlock this domain as fast as possible and start getting these artifacts. Even Shimenawa's, like I said, you could just slap this on to a character. Like 2-piece attack percentage, 2-piece energy recharge is honestly pretty solid for the majority of your, starting DPS characters of your choice. Now let's move on to the Slumbering Court, which houses the Ocean-Hued Clam and the Husk of Opulent Dreams. And you can start noticing that however started getting like really long with the artifact descriptions, and they're like Yu-Gi-Oh cards here. Like, look at this. This is probably one of the longest 4-piece effects in the game, but you don't have to go into detail about it. It's pretty straightforward. But let's start with the Husk of Opulent Dreams. So you remember when I was talking about the Archaic Petra and the Retracing Bolide artifact sets? Well, those used to be like semi-decent choices for Geo characters, but then once this set came out, this was the automatic everyone goes this set. Noelle still goes this set. Not Ningguang because she's not a defense scaling character, but Arataki Ito goes this set. It gives a bunch of defense and a bunch of geo damage, excuse me. So Albedo also being another good example. So you want to equip this on those characters. Basically, defense, which translates to damage for geo characters that scale with defense. And here, as long as you're hitting opponents with geo attacks, which should be all the time, you're going to gain a stack of 6% defense and 6% geo damage bonus. And this can stack up to 4 times, so 24% defense and geo damage bonus to your equipping character, which is very, very strong. And a very powerful artifact set for geo damaging characters. Next up is the Ocean-Hued Clam, which gives a healing bonus, just like the Maiden's Beloved. Now, in my opinion, this is the upgrade to Maiden's Beloved, because Maiden's Beloved just gives you more healing. As you play the game, as you get better, you might be realizing like, hey, I can dodge a lot of this stuff, or I have a shielder now. I can ignore a lot of the damage I'm taking. I don't really need, just straight up healing. Like, I'm comfortable. I feel like my healers are strong enough now that, like, I heal a lot of HP. Now what else can I give my healers to help contribute to fights? And this is exactly that. Ocean-Hued Clam makes it so that it turns into your healing into damage, basically. As long as you constantly keep healing, you'll have this the sea-dyed foam that'll appear. And as you heal, it'll accumulate up to 30,000 HP's worth of healing, and then it'll explode, dealing damage to nearby opponents. It does physical damage, so it can be reduced heavily by monster resistances, and you can't really proc reactions with it at all. Obviously, it's physical damage. But it does help characters like Barbara, Chi-Chi, for example, contribute some damage, without being just the heal bot on your team. So it's a decent upgrade. It's not awful. And at the time, it was actually pretty good, but with HP inflation and just bosses being what they are these days, it fell off a bit. But just for overworld exploring, this is still pretty good. And again, it makes your healers just more than just heal bots. At least those that don't have a lot of buffs. Like Bennett isn't just a heal bot because he has a really good attack buff, but characters like Chi-Chi, Barbara, who don't have much buffs outside of their kit, this Ocean-Hued Clam helps them at least contribute some damage. Next up is the Spire of Solitary Enlightenment. This is your go-to and was considered one of the best domains. I still think it's pretty solid. This is for all your Dendro needs. So the Deepwood memory set is basically the equivalent of the Veridescent Veneer set that we talked about earlier, but for Dendro. So it reduces Dendro resistance by 30% for 8 seconds. And this affects when, instead of having to do like a swirl or a quicken reaction, you only have to do your elemental skill or burst have to hit opponents with the Dendro characters. So this is good for any Dendro support characters, healers. I mean, you can even put this on Nahida, for example, but you can put this on Yao Yao, Kirara, anybody. Anybody that's Dendro and supporting your team. And you only need one person to have this because you can't stack it, just like Veridescent Veneer. Next up is Gilded Dreams. This set is still pretty solid for those characters that rely heavily on Elemental Mastery. Because you're either going to get an attack buff or an Elemental Mastery buff, depending on what the elements are on your team. If they're the same type, you get 50 Elemental Mastery per party member. And if they're not the same type, they will get a 14% attack buff. So this is pretty good damage. Again, this is mainly for characters that need Elemental Mastery, and you're having trouble getting it on your artifact pieces themselves. Next up is City of Gold, and this houses the Desert Pavillion Chronicle, as well as the Flower of Paradise Lost. So let's talk about the Desert Pavillion Chronicle. This set is super niche, because it only is good for one character, and that's going to be Wanderer. As we can see here, it says Animal Damage bonus for 2-piece, and then the 4-piece effect makes it so that your charged attacks, when your charge attacks hit opponents, the equipping character's normal attack speed will increase by 10%, and then give a normal charged and plunging attack damage increase of 40% for 15 seconds. The other character that could probably use this is Zhao, but again, Zhao has a lot of options these days for his artifact set, and they're all pretty good. It's all just gonna depend on the substats, honestly. But yeah, this set was tailor-made for Wanderer, and it still is. It's still his best artifact set. And honestly, with the animal characters that we have these days, even the new ones, it's just like you wouldn't give this to like Chaska or anything. It's not that good for her, because Natline characters have their artifact set, and those are pretty good. Like this is also, I guess, pretty good for Haizo. Definitely not gonna be his best set, because it's not like his normal attacks are a big portion of his damage. Nor his normal and charge are not a big portion of his damage. It comes from his elemental skill, getting the charges. Yeah, I can't really recommend this set that much unless you have a Wanderer. However, Flower of Paradise Lost, this is your go-to set if you are messing around with any Hyperbloom teams or Burgeon teams. You will 100% go to this set because it gives you the most damage. So this would go to your like Kuki Shinobu, who's triggering Hyperbloom, or your Toma if you're having trigger Burgeon, etc, etc. You would give them this artifact set right here. That's pretty much it. Like, it has a lot of text here. It's basically telling you it increases the damage of those elemental reactions, and that's honestly, that's all you need to know. That's it. And then the last artifact set for Sumeru is the Molten Iron Fortress, which houses the Nymph Stream and the Vorukasha's Glow. Unfortunately, this one's not that good either. So Nymph Stream, this artifact set right here is tailor-made for Tartaglia. This is his best artifact set. I don't know why he got so much special treatment over the years. I guess because he was like a fan favorite in the Asia servers. It can also be used by other characters like Ayato, but remember, Tartaglia can easily get max stacks for all of the different effects here. Let's just go over what this does, so we're all on the same page. So after your normal, charged, and plunging attacks, elemental skills, and elemental bursts hit opponents, one stack of Mirrored Nymph will be triggered, lasting 8 seconds. When under the effects of 1, 2, or 3 or more Mirrored Nymph stacks, your attack will be increased by 16%, 25%, and your Hydro damage bonus will be increased by up to 15%. You gain Mirrored Nymph stacks created by normal, charged, plunging attacks, elemental skills, and elemental bursts exist independently. So basically, it's perfect for Tartaglia because you're doing all of that. You're using his burst, you're using his skill, you're using normal and a mixture of charge attacks in his rotation. For Ayato, you're just spamming skill and then normal attack, normal attack, normal attack, normal attack, right? And burst, of course, to start off with. So yes, he can also get the stacks of Mirrored Nymph as well. It's just making sure that your burst is constantly hitting something, which thankfully has a huge AoE to do so. And you need to like weave in like maybe a charge attack if you want to get the max stacks consistently, and that's can make his rotation a little awkward, but I still think Heart of Depth is better for Ayato than this set. But still, this is #1 Tartaglia set, and unfortunately not much for anyone else. At least not for now. Maybe a future character. Next up is Vorukasha's Glow. This was supposed to be Dia's specific artifact set. And funny enough, it's not even that good for her. Like, it's still solid, but Emblem of Severed Fate is also really good because, again, it gives you a bunch of energy recharge and converts energy recharge to a damage stat for you. Whereas this one, it gives you HP percentage on the two-piece effect, which is funny because Dia's HP scaling is actually pretty awful until you get some constellations. I believe you need her C1 which improves her HP scaling in the first place. And then the four-piece effect here is increases your elemental skill and burst damage by 10%. You know, okay, that's very little. And then after the equipping character takes damage, the aforementioned damage bonus is increased by 80% for 5 seconds. So 80% of 10 is 8, and we're only getting an 18% increase in elemental skill and burst damage after we get hit for 5 seconds. This effect can stack up to 5 stacks, so as long as we're constantly getting hit, we can get a decent chunk of damage, and the duration of each stack is counted independently. And these effects can be triggered even when the character is not on the field. So you need to get hit 5 times to get max stacks, and the thing is, not every enemy is going to be hitting you that fast. And you might not even be getting hit because sometimes your reaction to dodge stuff, or you iframe through it, kicks in, and you're not taking hits. Whereas, if you just give her Emblem of Severed Fate, pop the burst, you just get more damage. No weird gimmicks or requirements, you just get damage. That's it. And that's, for those of you that use Dia as your DPS with her burst, that's honestly where it all comes from, right? Is her punching. And this is it's one of those things where it's poor design because we don't have the time to build up 5 stacks, especially with how time gated a lot of challenges tend to be with Genshin, especially in the end game. So this isn't that good, unfortunately. But most people just use this set for the two-piece effect and stack it with like Tenacity for HP scaling characters. So yeah, it's a really bad set. Next up is the Denouement of Sin. This is probably on par with Emblem of Severed Fate as one of the best artifact sets or artifact domains in the game. This is probably like second or third behind Emblem of Severed Fate. And let's talk about why. It's actually pretty easy. First, we have the Mary Chowsey Hunter set, and this is good for a lot of characters, not just Fontaine, because as long as your HP is increasing or decreasing, you get crit rate of 12% for 5 seconds, and you get 3 stacks. So you can get a straight up 36% crit rate for free from this artifact set. That's going to help alleviate, again, just like the Blizzard Shreyer set, this helps make your life a lot easier when it comes to building your characters. And characters like Farina, for example, can make this artifact set viable on any character you choose. It doesn't have to be a Fontaine character, but obviously characters like Noblesse, for example, where his HP is constantly going up and down, can take advantage of this. Even Hu Tao can take advantage of this because her HP is constantly going down, so you're getting the crit rate increase. And then if you want to heal her a little bit just for her HP to get drained, you'll be getting the effects of this artifact set for free. So a very, very good artifact set for multiple characters, and it helps make building them a lot easier. Next up is the Golden Troupe, and this is also a very, very strong artifact set for many, many characters. It increases elemental skill damage by 20%, and then for the 4-piece effect, another 25% increase for elemental skill damage. And if the character is not on the field, then their skill damage will be increased by another 25%. So we get a huge 70% damage increase to your elemental skill damage. This is perfect for characters like Fischl, for example, who just drop Oz, and then you move on. Yaimiko, drop her Fox Totems, move on. Farina, Bubble Buddies, buff, move on. Escoffier, drop the little tray, you know, with the AoE crowd damage, move on. That's it. And it's a very, very good artifact set for many support / side DPS characters. Or off-field DPS characters is what I should say. Very, very good set. Next up is the Waterfall Wen. And this is the best Geo artifact set for non-defense scaling characters. So this goes to Navia and Noelle. This is, or sorry, not Noelle. Ningguang, excuse me. This is now Ningguang's best in slot artifact set. Straight up. Because it gives, first of all, it gives an attack increase, which is nice. And then for the 4-piece effect, after using an elemental skill, you'll gain a 20% geo damage bonus for 10 seconds. While under a shield granted by the crystallized reaction, the above effect will be increased by 150%. And this additional increase disappears 1 second after that shield is lost. So characters like Navia and Ningguang, because you're constantly doing geo damage all the time anyways, this is not a problem. You'll constantly be doing crystallize, and you'll constantly have that shield from crystallize. Now, whether you hold on to that shield is going to be very dependent on you know, what you're fighting, of course. But you get a 20% damage bonus after using your skill, which then gets increased by 150 every time you do the crystallized reaction. So that's going to be a 30% increase additionally, right? So you get a 50% geo damage bonus for 10 seconds. And this is something you'll easily be able to keep up all the time with the right characters. So very, very strong artifact piece right here. Or artifact set, excuse me, for Navia and Ningguang. Very, very good. The other piece, before I move on, I almost forgot, is Song of Days Past. Unfortunately, this artifact set is different, but it's not crazy or anything. I believe a lot of people just prefer to just use Noblesse Oblige for their support characters, or Hued Clam. But let's go over what this does, because it's kind of underrated or not really talked about. So Song of Days Past gives you a healing bonus of 15%, just like Maiden's Beloved, or the Hued Clam. And then it says, when the equipping character heals a party member, the Yearning effect will be created for 6 seconds, which will record the total amount of healing provided. So this is very similar to the Hued Clam, where you summon a sea dyed foam, and then it will record your healing, and then it will explode to deal damage. But this one, it records your healing, and then it says, when the duration expires, the Yearning effect will then turn into the Waves of Days Past effect. So when your active party member hits an opponent with a normal, charged, or plunging attack, elemental skill, or elemental burst, the damage dealt will be increased by 8% of the total healing amount recorded by the Yearning effect. The Waves of Days Past effect is removed after it's taken effect 5 times after 10 seconds. A single instance of the Yearning effect can record up to 15,000 healing, and only a single instance can exist at once. But it can record the healing from multiple equipping characters. Equipping characters on standby can still trigger this effect. Wowee, that was a lot of words, right? So yeah, it only records up to 15,000 healing, and if you're not able to meet that requirement, it'll take 8% of that to increase whatever damage you do with the next active character. It can also take into account off-field damage. So it's an okay buff. I think a lot of people just like to stick to Noblesse Oblige because it's just a straight up 20% attack, no having to build anything up. And Hued Clam is just going to be free damage that you don't have to think about. So this one is, like, I have this on one character, and it's going to be on my, I forgot her name for a second. Sorry, it was Siegewin. I just have it on her because I have a lot of characters with Noblesse Oblige. So I figured let's have her be a little bit different. And to be honest, I don't really notice any significant changes with her on the team. Like, it's a nice little boost of damage, sure, but it's nothing crazy. Nothing crazy, at least I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it at all to me. And then here we have the last artifact domain in Fontaine. We have the Unfinished Reverie. This is only for burning. This is straight up Emily's artifact set, then that's it. So if you have her, this is your go-to. Anybody else? Nope. Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy is for... This is specifically for Bond of Life characters. So these are 2 niche artifact sets. So unless you have characters that actually fit into these niches, this is a total skip. But this is for characters like I was about to say Siege Wind. Technically it could be, but this is for characters like Florind. This is for characters like Arlecchino, because they have Bond of Life stuff by default. And some Fontaine characters have this whole Bond of Life thing, and this is just to increase their damage, basically, and that's it. Bond of Life, yes. Anything else? No. Alright, now we're getting to the newer stuff. Now we're in Natlan, and this is probably the 3rd or 4th best artifact domain. Because this... honestly, this artifact set legit covered the entirety of all Natlan characters. You didn't have to, like, wonder... oh, there's a new Natlan character. What set do they use? It's this one. Can I go back and farm this one? No, you just come here. You come straight to the Sanctum of Rainbow Spirits, and you either give them the Scroll of Hero of Cinder City, or you give them the Obsidian Codex. And you're like, how do I figure out which one? The answer is simple. Is your Natlan character a support or a off-field DPS? If the answer is yes, Scroll of Hero Cinder City. Why? Because when you give them this... so let's talk about the 4-piece effect. Or let's talk about this artifact's effects, first of all, and so you can see why. So for 2-piece effect, when you do a Night Soul Burst, that's basically Natlan character stuff, the equipping character will regenerate 6 elemental energy. This is going to be a huge help for energy recharge needs for a lot of characters. Now for the 4-piece effect, when you trigger an elemental reaction, you will gain an elemental damage bonus for all elemental types involved. This is really, really strong. So, for example, if you do Vaporize, you get Pyro damage increase and Hydro damage increase. Now, if the character is in their Night Soul Blessing state, they will then give instead a 28% damage increase to the elemental types involved. Very, very strong and does not stack. Still recommend giving this to all Natlan characters because even though the effect doesn't stack, getting 6 energy for free is such a huge help, and that's why if you've ever seen me run my Natlan teams, I'm able to just constantly just burst with characters like Iansen, Shillinen, Silali, usually, because they have this effect, and they're constantly giving us buffs, which is really nice. Now to answer the other question, is the Natlan character you pulled for a main DPS? If the answer is yes, then you give them the Obsidian Codex. This is the other option. So here, when they do the Night Soul Blessing on the 2-piece effect, they just get straight up 15% more damage. Easy. Now here, for the 4-piece effect, now when you consume a Night Soul point, this is just the whole Night Soul Blessing, Night Soul points. You'll just do this naturally playing Natlan characters. You don't have to think about it. You get a straight up crit increase of 40%. So just like the Blizzard Strayer, and just like Mary Chelsea Hunter, this helps building your DPS characters, and you can go for more crit damage rather than crit rate, because you're already covered here. Well, you're not entirely covered, but this, a 40% crit rate is a huge chunk, even more so than the Mary Chelsea Hunter set. So you can just live off having crit rate as your, your substat, with it getting maybe an upgrade or two to help get you to like 60, 70, even 80% quite easily. So Natlan characters, your artifact building days were very, very much simplified. And last but certainly not least, we've come to the end of this long video. We've made it to the Derelict Masonry Dock. This is the latest artifact domain we added into the game, and just like previous ones before, it's very, very niche. This one houses the Long Night's Oath and the finale of the Deep Galleries. Let's go ahead and talk about Long Night's Oath. So this one increases plunging attack damage by 25%. And then for the 4-piece effect, after the equipping character's plunging attack, charge attack, or elemental skill hits an opponent, they will gain 2 stacks of Radiance Everlasting. Plunging attacks, charge attacks, or elemental skills can trigger this effect once every 1 second. Radiance Everlasting plunging attacks deal 15% increased damage for 6 seconds with a maximum of 5 stacks. Each stack's duration is counted independently. Now, on paper, this was definitely for Veressa, who at the time, she came out around the same time this was released, and she is a plunging DPS character. You can also use this with Gaming as well, and Zhao. The thing about this one is just like the, remember the Vorukasha's Glow with the 5 stacks? anything where it's like, you know, 5 stacks to get the you know, the maximum damage boost. The problem is building up those stacks. Some characters can do this way easier than others, and that's why the value of this artifact set can like differ. But it's still a solid set. However, for Veridescent, you can also still just give her the Obsidian Codex. Remember, she's also doing Night Soul stuff, and you just give her a bunch of Curate for free. So you can also give her that, but this is also going to give her more damage overall as long as you're building the stacks. From the set, this is going to be her most damaging set. As well as for plunging characters. Don't forget, like, characters like Cloud Retainer can make any character technically a plunging attack character. So if you want to do that, specifically for a character that's going to be doing plunging attacks, you can give them this set as well. But yeah, characters like Gaming, you're going to appreciate this one for sure. Next up is Finale of the Deep Galleries, and this has a lot of yapping. But unfortunately, this is an artifact set that's literally for one character in the entire video game, and that's going to be Skirk. Because she's the only character that will have 0 elemental energy. That is the #1 requirement to get basically a bunch of damage. And unfortunately, no cryo character other than Skirk can have 0 elemental energy because she does not use elemental energy. Every other character, cryo character, does. This is very niche. I don't like it when artifact sets are super niche like this. Maybe there'll be more characters like this in the future. But as for now, this is only a Skirk artifact set. And with that being said, that's going to do it for this long artifact set yap session, basically, where we go over every set and just talk about how good they are. Hopefully this is helpful to new players out there that might be overwhelmed with all of these artifact sets. If you do have a question about a certain artifact set, maybe I didn't explain stuff well enough, or if you have a question about a character using a certain artifact set, feel free to ask in the comments down below. I'll do my best to answer you. And if you feel like I missed something, like, hey, actually, you know, the Archaic Petra is actually an underrated set on this character, and here's why, I'd love to hear it. But other than that, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of long-form content, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Lets me know that you guys want to see more of this stuff in the future. I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.